Hello, welcome to the Josh Volinski Show. And if you haven't figured it out yet, down here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, there are two qualities that describe all of us. First of all, none of us are in the box, in any box, and also we explore issues further and deeper and in a more controversial and respectable way than most media. You know, in 1960, I had the pleasure of meeting Malcolm X. It wasn't a formal gathering. I came up upon a group of men in front of the Hotel Teresa, and there was Malcolm X giving a lecture right in front of the Hotel Teresa. And when the group of men saw me, the first thing they said was, there's a cracker listening to our conversation. And then, much to my amazement, Malcolm X stopped what he was saying and he said, gentlemen, there is another human being here who has come to learn. He's not disrupting anybody, and he's listening quietly. And when somebody listens quietly and respectfully, you do not harass them. First of all, they may learn something, and second of all, you may also learn something. And that's what MNN is about. And I remember also a few weeks later in the early 60s, Malcolm X came to City College. He was in Great Hall, and he was very he kept criticizing the white man, meaning the establishment. He really didn't mean the Caucasian people. He meant the system. And when there was a Q&A meeting, session, my buddy who was sitting next to me got up and said, Malcolm, I am very annoyed at the fact that you keep saying the white man this, the white man that. I want you to know one thing. I just came back from Vietnam. Now you know how many years ago that was. I just came back from Vietnam. And when I was in Vietnam, Malcolm, I was fighting for your freedom as well as mine. And Malcolm X looked compassionately at my friend and said, if you were fighting for my freedom as well as yours, you did a lousy job, didn't you? And the entire audience broke out in laughter. So today, I want to discuss some very key issues: community and education. And I have two wonderful guests here. I have Tasha Prosper. This is a young educational master, a master of psychology at Columbia University, taking doctoral studies at Columbia University, and I'm sure she'll become one of the great psychologists of the world. And I have Jonathon Rubin. He is active in Friends of the Clearwater. He's a GAL in the New York, in the court system, and he defends indigent tenants, and he campaigns for the most progressive candidates who are running. Like, for instance, he was very interested in Mr. Brown in California, and you actually met him and knew him.
I don't think I really knew him, Josh. I met him a few times. He was a very gentlemanly person. The thing that struck me about him is, yes, he wasn't born to the lower class, but actually in 1974, way before the 1992 campaign, he enacted a law limiting lobbyists to how much they could contribute to political candidates. So he was for campaign finance reform in '74. But the most monumental piece of legislation that he enacted in 1974 is he enacted the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act, which said for the Chicano mine workers, or the Chicano farm workers, not mine workers, for the Chicano farm workers, their right to human dignity of health care, collective bargaining, negotiations, unions, housing, and food was just as important as the right of the farm owners, and that they deserved a system not to oppress them when they were bringing the food to much of America, but to involve them and include them. And so he included a bunch of people. Yes, some of them were Mexican immigrants, but he included them. And I think that inclusion was what Governor Brown but then candidate Brown in 1992 wanted to do. He wanted to include America. And I think his notion of inclusion also showed itself when he defeated Margaret Whitman last year, even though she outspent him like about 60 to 1 or 58 to 1 or something like that. He didn't spend a lot of money. He spent some money that was raised. She spent about 155 to 160 million of her own money, and that actual fact is the real problem in politics today. There's a case that was decided on January 22nd, 2009, called Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. And that says for any candidate anywhere for any election, local, state, or national, a corporation that doesn't even do business in the United States could put $50 million into that campaign for the candidate it wants to try to elect that candidate. That takes the concept of one person, one vote away from the people. It says certain people are more important. And I certainly don't believe that the people who think that business as usual is more important than, good education, good community, good courts. I think that's very important. And another facet of information that I wanted to say is I was reading an op-ed article in yesterday's New York Times that's talking about the campaigning to be judge. And that's included in large parts of America. And that means that not necessarily the most qualified lawyers are judges, but that means the people with most capital or best ability to fundraise it are the judges. And judges are very important.
Well, Jonathon, if it was up to me, I would appoint you as an archivist of social justice, which would aid different segments of the progressive movements in this country. And now let's get to Tasha. Tasha's specialty is education and psychology. Now, we know that we need new paradigms in education, in educating young people. The paradigms have to be changed, and we have to remove people like Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, if Kathy Black didn't have any credits in education, Mayor Bloomberg certainly doesn't have any credits in education. So as Vladimir Lenin said, Tasha, what is to be done?
Okay, so first, thank you for having me on your show. It's a wonderful honor. In terms of education, it's a tricky situation, but it's quite simple when you involve the community. And people like Bloomberg, they don't want community control over education. They feel that they know best. And it's kind of comical because, of course, he would think he would know best because he's a white male and he's wealthy and he's successful. So you're right, there needs to be a paradigm shift where you really give back the power to the community members, to the people, and that's people of all colors. to decide what is pertinent, what do they need, what are their hopes and dreams in this world, and what do we want in our education system. It's full of a bunch of information passed down from a white society to people of all of these different backgrounds and ethnic groups, and it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant and it's outdated. And what it is it's stacked up so that we can sort of section off certain facets of society and certain groups so that you have this hierarchy. And it's this current education system is to reinforce the hierarchy. It's to reinforce the standard that you come from a certain background, you get a certain education, and you enter the workforce, this corporate America workforce, at a higher level, and you can tell others what to do because you have ingrained in you the systemic power privilege, and you will reinforce that. So that's the current system that Bloomberg, obviously has mastered and will want to reinforce. But what we want as community members is for the community to be able to say, listen, this is what we know our children need. We need more arts. We need more music programs. We are a very gifted and talented group of people across different backgrounds. We express our intelligence in many ways that are not the standard to European Americans. So we want to be at the table to sort of have a voice with where our tax dollars are going towards regarding education. Because if we don't educate ourselves, what we are getting currently is trash. And it's going to pump out more people of color to prison systems. It's going to create that prison to pipeline that is fueling our society. And right now, what we have just doesn't work. And if Bloomberg doesn't understand that even though he is white, male, and rich, he does not know all about education and about the entire world and what everyone needs just because he has the power and the privilege. Now, it doesn't mean that he then should take upon himself the role of this education Svengali and tell us all, what needs to be done, all of this testing and over-testing of our kids and allocating dollars out to the suburbs and leaving our youth in the inner cities like destitute with old books and old, outdated buildings. It's shameful what's going on, and they'll say that it's not based on race, that it's not racist, but what it is, it's a way to sort of section off people, and regardless of if he feels or if that administration feels it's racist, it still gives fuel to a segregated white privilege in our society. And education is a main tool to manipulate people to sort of hold back power, hold back knowledge, and sort of pump people to where you feel is appropriate for them to go to, which is more of the low earning jobs. Now, if we had a society where we were all paid a living wage and people chose their careers in a free way, in terms of not everyone wants to be a lawyer, not everyone wants to be a doctor, I understand that, but we all should have that ability to have a decent education, quality education, and give back to society in the ways that are relevant to our spirit force, that are relevant to what we want to give to this world. It doesn't mean that we have to give back by being a banker or a doctor. We can educate surely everyone in a creative, masterfully creative way so that our society is better.
Yes. Tasha and I do a show on WBAI called CUNY Mission Deferred. And it really is a mission deferred because a lot of things are happening there that are not right, despite these wonderful advertisements when they talk about 3 or 4 or 5 geniuses. And we've always had geniuses everywhere, but the great majority of people are good, talented people with many gifts. Maybe they're not going to come forth with a great theory in digital technology or some serum that cures a disease, but they are doing so much important work in education, in retail stores, in I mean, a few of them are even driving taxis now because of their financial situation. And that's what higher education should be about, for educating everybody.
But I think higher education should be also about the fact that the truth matters. And I think I agree with Tasha. The system as it's in place right now wants to tell their version of history, which is not necessarily inclusive of some of the monumental figures of history. It took me practically until graduate school to find out about the leading voice for civil rights in this country, Charles Houston. Most people think, oh, he was a lawyer, he worked in the courts, he did his job. But that was not true. Charles Houston was a lawyer, but he was also a student, I believe, at Amherst College and Harvard Law School. And when he was a student and, carrying on his life on campus, he was a member of a severe minority group. He was probably the only law student who was black in his law school at the time, and oftentimes he was thought of as, here to be the servant of somebody else, or here to be the bodyguard of somebody else, not somebody with brains on his own. And what's even worse is he was somebody who really believed in education. He founded Howard University Law School. He was a professor there for many years, but he also litigated the battles in the South in the 20s and 30s and 40s, when it wasn't a time for you really to travel in the South and comfortably and reside and stay in a hotel or eat in a restaurant. He had to eat by the bathroom benches, and he had to sleep in his car with a shotgun for fear of his life. And he really was a crusader for social justice and civil rights, who's often forgotten in American history or not even discussed. And there's another towering figure of American history right here in the city, who, if you ask Mayor Bloomberg who Meyer London is, he is a governing official, doesn't even know one of the towering figures in New York City history, Meyer London, who was towering for two reasons. He was a labor activist. He started the Workmen's Circle. He was elected to Congress and put the Tammany machine to its first electoral defeat. And that talks about, unfortunately, what the system is. It's corrupt, it's rooted in money, and it's rooted in control that is taken away from the people largely.
Yes, I would like to see someone publish a book with all these people that they so conveniently overlook, like Hubert Harrison, the father of black radicalism, and also I had to read J.P. Morgan's autobiography to find out that the woman who put together the entire Morgan collection not only was an African American, but she was her parents were born into slavery, and she, of course, some of it was her doing too. She always told J.P. Morgan that she was from Brazil, from an aristocratic family in Brazil. So it wasn't until her biography, until J.P. Morgan's biographer was trying to find out more about this wonderful woman who put together this fabulous collection you see on East 36th Street. She couldn't find any information on her and she finally discovered she was an African American whose parents were slaves. And Tasha and I talks about this all the time on WBAI with my wonderful moderator, Professor Bill Crane. Tell us about your feelings on this subject, Tasha.
Well, that's a lot that you just said. So In regards to Hubert Harrison, first of all, I know a very talented author, Jeff Perry, who wrote several several books about Hubert Harrison, and published and researched his writings, and put that out for us all to understand Hubert Harrison's radicalism. And he was from Jamaica, and when he came here and he saw the racial tensions, we had a different type of slavery system here than he was used to seeing in the plantations in Jamaica. Here in the U.S., it was a lot harsher, more brutal and cruel. And he sort of, he was just this amazing radical that school children should know about. I think that there's a reason why people like the folks you mentioned are not exalted. And again, it's to keep up the status quo. There are some brilliant scholars, Latino, Asian, and African American, that are just left out. And it's as if by withholding a person's history, it's going to block their intelligence and block their future. And that's not true, because we are very creative and we will find ways to get to this knowledge. And like you were saying, that you only yourself got a certain bit of information once you were in graduate school. I find myself, now that I'm in graduate school, learning about people like Hubert Harrison, people that if I had known about him in junior high, I would have been able to stand up a little bit straighter. I would have been able to articulate my feelings a little bit better around the issues of social justice. But it was as if I was in a system, I grew up in New Orleans, and I went to the public school system, and that school system perpetuated just this version that, you are down and out because you are no good, and you just don't work hard enough, and there's no fighting the system. There's nobody thinks that the system is wrong. You're the problem. Just pull it together, or get out of the system, drop out. And so I think that it's anti the United States to truly empower the youth at a young age. Can you imagine a radicalized education system starting from kindergarten up, where all students of all races get the truth about their ancestry and about how we became this supposedly great nation? If we really knew the nuts and bolts of it and what it took, the sacrifice, the people who had to die to move us forward, and the brilliance of the scholars, the African scholars that put all of their intelligence into building this country, I mean, we would really be the true, we say that, God bless America, we're the greatest nation. We would truly be a great nation if we empowered all of the students with their true history and unlock their genetic DNA to greatness. Because mentally, if you can align yourself with people who are very powerful, who get things done, who are highly intelligent, and it's not based on test scores and all of these things that are thrown at us by corporate America to say that we're inferior. If we truly have the knowledge that we come from greatness, and that all groups would benefit from a full inclusion of people from all walks of life, we would have so much more success in America. We would have so much just muscle in the world at large, because we would have all of the knowledge of all of the people to fuel us forward. Because intelligence right now is just being sort of seen as what comes from a European American standard. When you fully engage all areas of your mind, of your brain, and you get a full participation from your teachers, to sort of spark that intelligence, that's when we see true knowledge in action. That's when we see true giftedness and intelligence.
I just want to say this has been the Josh Volinski Show, and this is going to be up on YouTube. Also, going to get my friend Harold to put it on YouTube, or we'll put it on YouTube.
Excellent.
And thank you so much, Josh.
And I also want to say, this is very important. Take out the $10 bill. Take out the $10 bill. Look at who's on the $10 bill. An immigrant. Alexander Hamilton was an immigrant. He was not born in the United States. That's why he never ran for president. So we have an immigrant on our $10 bill. Let's be kind and respect all immigrants and treat them the right way. Thank you very much. You want to say a few words?
Yes. I did want to say, I brought up two notable figures in American history, and I do know a little bit of history. And I learned that some people have the concept of the great figure of an American history, but the history that I was taught in graduate school, that it's communities that change, it's organized groups that bring about change. Sure, there might be a leader running the organizational framework to organize and to make speeches, but it's actually the communities of America that make the change. And I was also, I have a friend who was a professor for a number of years, or assistant professor, I should say, for a number of years in political science. And he brings up a book that maybe your listeners want to read. It was by Douglas A. Blackaman, and it's called, it's about forced convict labor in the South, where people were basically treated like property.
Let's do part 2 now. Let's do part 2. Okay, Nat? This is part 2.
Okay.
They gave us, this was a good show, right?
Oh, cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it so far.
It was a good show.
I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I don't remember it.